On today's episode, you're going to find out why every direct-to-consumer brand needs a single source of truth in their data. It's a great episode you don't want to miss, so do stay tuned. Hi there, it's Kunle Campbell, the host of 2x eCommerce podcast show, and this episode you're about to listen to is an interview I had with Michael Vadini, who is the CEO and founder of Glew.io. Now, Glew.io is pretty much an intelligence, a BI, a business intelligence platform exclusively for e-commerce. And they have over 95 integrations, including Shopify, BigCommerce, and Magento. They're a fast-growing business, and essentially what we talk about is why your D2C brand actually needs a single source of truth in data. We talk about essentially insights, analytics, and essential metrics you must be tracking in your e-commerce business to ensure not just growth but profitability. So it's a great episode. And yeah, if you're still trying to iron out metrics you should be measuring or lever points to look into, we talk a lot about CLV, about AOV, those pure metrics that you don't necessarily get off the back of traditional analytics platforms such as analytics. We talk about really business dashboards that you could report to your board. Metrics that you could, use to essentially make decisions, like CPA, cost per acquisition decisions, to essentially, guide you in the right path towards profitability. So, enjoy this episode. But before I let you go, if you're listening to this or if you have access to an Apple device, go to the podcast app right now. Hit subscribe, search for 2x eCommerce, hit subscribe, and also leave us a review, an honest review. I don't care how many stars it is, just leave us a review. Leave us a subscribe and leave us a review. And if you're on YouTube, follow us on YouTube, okay? So just thank you, enjoy this episode, and I shall catch you on the other side. Bye. Hello, 2Xers. Welcome to the 2X e-commerce podcast. And I'm your host, Kunle Campbell. This is a podcast dedicated to rapid growth in online retail and direct-to-consumer commerce. Now, if you work in marketing at an e-commerce business or a founder at a direct-to-consumer e-commerce, what I'm going to do is help you sell more. And the way I do it is we find an expert, a founder, or a representative from a best-in-class SaaS product. We, get them to share their knowledge to help you grow metrics such as conversions, average order value, repeat customers, traffic, and ultimately sales. Our remit essentially is to help you sell more sustainably. On today's episode, I am joined by Michael Vadini. He's a very experienced CEO, Chief Executive Officer in the computer software industry. And more interestingly, I have known Michael since about 2017. He founded Glew in summer of 2016. At the time, we were having conversations, to see if we could come into the show and talk about it. Now, what is Glew? Glew is a powerful analytics and business intelligence platform for e-commerce businesses and agencies, and it really covers all bases. It just doesn't cover your store, but it covers multi-channel e-commerce analytics. Essentially, I think what gets me, because some of my clients use Glew, is how user-friendly Glew is, how interactive it is, and its ability to connect with various sources. The last time I checked, Glew was supporting over 90 APIs, I believe, 95 API integrations at the time. And according to Michael, the team are adding 6 to 10 integrations every quarter. I think I said too much. I'd just like to welcome Michael to the show. Welcome, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. Could you take a little moment to talk about Glew and its evolution. From back in the days, it's been 4 years. A good 4 years, a very interesting 4 years. Tell us where you've come from and where you are. Now as a platform.
Yeah, I really like the way that you position that because it really has been and continues to be an evolution. We're never done learning because we're obviously constantly interacting with thousands of companies about what they need and off of in their ability to manage all the data to run their business more effectively. When we started out, the company was actually founded in 14, but we had a product roadmap. It took us 2 years to get to our first release in the summer of 2016. We had a very plainly stated mantra, which was to be the best e-commerce analytics and business intelligence platform on the planet. That's what we wanted to become. I'm not sure that we necessarily knew what that even meant, to be totally honest with you. I think we're learning every day what that really means across a very large section of subscribers. And so when it started out, if you think about the core data sources that all online retailers, online merchants, DTC, CPG, everybody uses, you've got your usual suspects of cart systems and advertising and channels and all the data. But what we came to learn over time is in every aspect of the platform, there's really never-ending development that has to happen. And so the way I would describe that is, if you think of, as you mentioned, you're right on. We are about 95 currently standard integrations, and adding, like you said, about 10 a quarter, as well as ETLing all that blended data and having that reside in a single repository, a big data warehouse. So now I've got my data management capabilities. The question is, how do we render or deliver that information to the people consuming it in a way that'll be useful and standard and effective? And so you mentioned a SaaS product. We have a standard SaaS offering, Glew.io, where we have literally hundreds of different key metrics and KPIs, and also the ability to create custom visualizations and segmentation and all different types of capabilities, as well as the ability to connect your BI tool directly to the warehouse and create custom visualizations. And that evolution still isn't done. That's just what happened in the last 4 years. We have a very assertive roadmap about taking that to the next level around what we call push technology, around automation, and around alerts. Because what we really want to do is do all we can for the online seller to have, not only for it to be actionable, but to enable them to take the action and to enable them to affect not only the things they're managing, but everything for all the people they're depending on in their organization to optimize their selling.
Yep. No, I agree. There's one thing having the data, and then there's another thing knowing what to do with the data. So those nudges, I guess, will be the next step where with all of the information you have privy to, you have access to, you're able to suggest much more intelligent next steps for marketing teams, I would think.
That's exactly right. What's really interesting to me, I love this business, and I literally wake up early electrified every day about what's happening with Glew and the platform. And it mostly is because, I guess it's because I'm so old and I've been around so long. I had a career in ERP and business intelligence. I've been 35 years in the software industry, and I see everything come together in this platform because, again, everything from, let's say, a DTC brand that's having great success. I'll give you one example. Just had a recent, new, very successful DTC brand that just subscribed to Glew. And the founder of that company, who has extremely high growth and now has a company that's worth a ton of money, he was his own marketing person for a lot of years. Not a lot, but 3 to 4 years. He knows what he has the brains, and a couple of people close by worked with him, had the brains, and they really worked off of his gut. In other words, it was the know-how and the expertise, but he knew that he can't scale that business working off the gut because he's on to bigger things to scale the business, especially having taken down significant investment in the company. And he now has to rely on a platform that that brings him the intelligence that will affect all the parts of the business: customers, products, orders, inventory, advertising, return on ads, all the things you mentioned. How do I get my AOV, my acquisition costs, all these key performance indicators. It's not a one-man show back in the DTC. At the same time, we have a $30 billion CPG company that now, of course, like many they're having to get into the game of going direct and being their own channel. And they don't have the simplicity of the emerging company. They have all that complexity associated with being a global company with marketing people and merchandising and product managers all over the world, selling the same brands in different locations or selling multiple brands and not having the ability, because again, their data sources are in all these disparate locations until they have the ability using Glew to get that all into one location to know simple things like, is this direct business as profitable as we think it is? I'll give you one quick anecdote, which is one of my favorite ones. In this $30 billion company, one of the greatest things Glew did for them, they have over 26 integrations, so 26 data sources, all coming together into a single warehouse. The biggest thing that they had to find out is what is really happening with our shipping and shipping costs as it relates to our ability to manage it effectively to not erode our target profitability. And to do that across their brands and across all the campaigns and advertising and promotions that they're running. That's so interesting.
In that instance, where do you start?
I think it starts, that's one of the things that we've learned is it starts with getting, you asked me about this, what is the headline here? We've got to get trust in our data. We've got to put trust in our data. We have to know that we have all the data. We have all the data that we need. There's integrity. It's refreshed at a frequency that we can rely upon for accurate reporting. And we can get that then in a standard fashion into the hands of the people that we're relying on to optimize our business. And the more that we can continuously improve the ability, whether it's on the marketing side, the product side, the cost management side, the inventory management side, all these key drivers to performance, whether it's a merchant, it may be a merchant, it may be a DTC, it may be a large CPG company, it's all the same. How do I optimize and learn and continuously improve against continuously emerging competition?
Right.
And we have to start with the data, and then we have to get it propagated out to the tool set that we use. In this case, for us, Glew.io is the standard tool set, and then all the additional custom visualizations that complement what's standard, hopefully give one a holistic view of everything that each of us respectively needs in the company.
Okay, right. I'm going to get into some very technical questions, but I think I want to start out with how you decided to choose e-commerce. Back in 2016, you said you actually started in 2014, and you didn't develop the product until 2016. Why e-commerce? Do you have a background in e-commerce? Does your co-founder have a background in e-commerce? Why choose e-commerce?
It's a great question. And initially, we viewed BI more generally, and we viewed this market opportunity more generally. And when I say that, what I mean is think of the inclusion of the B2B world, and that world then involves a whole different set of data sources. And what we saw was that the emerging opportunity the emerging opportunity, as well as the ability to do it well. In other words, in a digital world, you can more effectively leverage that environment because we live in a digital world. In the traditional B2B world, in the brick and mortar world, what we found is there are too many exceptions and too much what I would call legacy embedded in the processes and the activities that would make it a marginalized offering. And so we wanted the purity. And the other thing is, we always said, and Carmen Vadini is our co-founder, as he always said, we want to be on the right side of commerce, just like you want to be on the right side of history. Yeah. We got to be on the right side of commerce, and commerce is going the way of the digital experience, even for B2B. So and that's why we did that. We made the move.
Because there are other options. There are SaaS, there are apps, and those also reside, in digital commerce, and you could see the entire funnel and, in those, yes. in those other, but e-commerce, and as you said, that foresight it's impressive that you have the foresight. Who would have known, Shopify would be what it is today? Who would have known Amazon would be the most, valuable company in the world, and, have the wealthiest man in the world. So that foresight is what I'm trying to dig into. Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Did you know that cloud-hosted e-commerce platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce do not provide automatic backups? Rewind steps in to protect Shopify and BigCommerce stores with automatic backups. Rewind is trusted by over 25,000 stores. Install Rewind and get to test it for free over 7 days. And to extend the 7-day trial to 30 days, head over to rewind.io, their website, and mention 2x eCommerce. So kudos to you in terms of like the foresight of seeing, e-commerce going the way it is, back in 2014, we're talking about. Because I interviewed, one of my first interviews on here was for a business intelligence platform that kind of their heart and soul was SaaS, and e-commerce was kind of like a side project. They ended up selling to Magento eventually, but the focus really essentially for that company, I can't quite recall the name of the company, but I remember, he granted me, I remember the interview quite vividly. Was SaaS. They had this SaaS and subscription offering, and then e-commerce.
Was it RJ Metrics?
Was RJ Metrics? Yes, RJ Metrics was it? Yeah. And I was quite surprised with the Magento acquisition because most of their clients were SaaS clients.
Yes. It's very interesting that you say that. It's right on the money. We tracked that company and many other companies when we were positioning what we believe would be an opportunity. We still have influences out there that would suggest that we would look at the world differently, but we're very focused right now on the market we're serving. Yeah. One of the interesting things, what I'm thrilled about, is that if you think about some of these very big time unicorn level companies, that names that we would all be familiar with in terms of whether they're data pipeline companies or data warehouse companies, and in some cases, BI visualization tools, those tools coming out of the box when you subscribe don't deliver when you sign up what an e-commerce company or an e-commerce business is looking for. They deliver the ability at best to arrive at the data. In other words, I can get you some of the data, not all of it. I may or may not ETL it. It's in a warehouse for you from a different company. Another company says, here's my BI tool. So you may have, many times our best customers' biggest wins is decommissioning 3 or 4 different platforms, big companies too, that you'd recognize, and putting it all into a single Glew subscription because it's so, as you said, so niche and focused. And I'll give you a quick example. It's not just having the data in the warehouse. It's having the data that's the metadata that's produced from that data. So I'll give you an example, lifetime value. One of our favorite stories is about a successful merchant that became a Glew subscriber and was seeking to raise capital. And there's some key metrics that private equity was looking for out of his business. And one of those was around, lifetime value. What are we really going to see for every dollar invested in terms of our expected return from those customers? And he really didn't have the ability to effectively show. So you asked, earlier a good question about like time frames, like go to your date picker and pick a time frame and get a cohort of customers, and then put that cohort year over year and show me the effectiveness of your selling and your capability to build a positive growing lifetime value around that customer cohort. And that information is all available in Glew. And that he was able to raise capital based on having that information at his fingertips.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, let's segue into, and that's a very fascinating question, story, because you're using data to back your, your goals, essentially, whether it's to raise capital or whether it's to maximize customer lifetime value. It starts with the data, right? It starts with the data. Okay, so let's talk about. I'm on a Glew platform right now. I'm just going through a Glew platform. Let's talk about how you calculate CAC, customer acquisition cost. Um, so for the people listening that are not used to a platform like Glew, how does your, obviously your platform is using, some of the best computations or formulas to calculate, customer acquisition cost. So what's the most optimal way of figuring out, your CAC, which is the starting point in e-commerce before we move into CLV?
Right. Okay. Well, I would say this. Let me tell you how we do come up with those calculations, because I couldn't give you here the most recent like definition of our CAC formula or calculation. But let me take CAC, but also let me take things like lifetime value, but also
Okay.
let me take things like an attribution model, for example.
Yeah.
Because attribution is so fundamental to a lot of what we do within the Glew, warehouse. So we have a handful, not a big group. It's just 6 to 8 people that are on what we call our data team. And these are people that are not necessarily, I wouldn't call them necessarily data scientists or BI people. That's a different group of people. These are people that are from the e-commerce industry, that they know e-commerce. They were in e-commerce before we met them. And really, it's a blessing, actually, that we were able to have them join our company. They bring something that, again, is very key to putting trust into your data, and that is around having the domain expertise that goes into the calculations, any one of our calculations. And it's not, you would think that that would be a very straightforward answer. Like, in other words, I could go to a formula, a recipe book, and tell you this is CAC, this is AOV, this is lifetime value, this is my return on ad spend, this is my attribution model. And it's not true. What we find is that across the carts, across different tools, across different customers, you can actually have differences about what elements are included in one calculation, this very same calculation, from one of those environments to the next. So what we do, our data team is responsible to do, like we just recently introduced your ability to select an alternative, like a first attribution versus last attribution model within the same data set. So that, because we know people look at these things, we happen to have a heavy emphasis in our company around first order attribution, just because we tend to put other emphasis in the rest of the product around what that means to your decision making. But this data team is responsible to net out what we think are the best practices and matches up with what will provide across the whole product the continuity to give again trusted data, trusted reporting. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you right now how we calculate CAC. I could tell you how we make all our calculations. And we have a major release coming out right now called CSV2. It's for our customer segment version 2, which really will upgrade many of those calculations to be reflective of. One example would be, for example, some new data available to us in the APIs that were, our sources of data. So let me give you an example. One of the things that people ask about the value of our platform, when you have 100 integrations, and we're going to add, like you said, 10 a quarter, the average e-commerce online seller has 26 data sources, 26 software packages that they use to run their company. Typically, at least 70 to 80% of those sources are sources that they seek to make part of their blended, their what we call our Glew Intelligent Warehouse that provides all the insights that they're looking for. So those APIs, those data sources, literally, we have a team dedicated just to maintaining the currency of those data sources, because it changes constantly. Shopify, my understanding is just released new data elements that are available in the API that, because we can get at it now, will allow us to enhance our ability to do our reporting. So there's value. Again, it starts with the data integrations themselves, the validity and the frequency of those integrations.
So I guess you have staff that man each integration, that just each API, and just figure out, what's new, and then you adapt the platform to each API, to the data provided by each API.
Yeah, we have 35 people in our company that do nothing but create new and maintain existing currency on those data sources.
Right. Makes sense.
So that's where the data integrity starts.
Okay.
And then there's the ETL routines, and then there's the warehouse. Mm-hmm. And that warehouse is what renders that SaaS, that Glew.io standard product. And then you can complement that with custom visualizations through something called BI Tunnel. Tunnel is on the left nav. And so now I have a user experience.
We'll talk about that, shortly. Okay, so let's look at, customer lifetime, value. It's a very contentious issue in e-commerce, especially given the fact that, products in e-commerce vary. If I was selling razors, my customer lifetime value calculation will be different to if I was selling cameras or camera lenses, just due to the very nature of the products. So does Glew offer that flexibility, or let's start out with, what advice would you give to e-commerce, retailers, or, e-commerce marketing teams listening to this, trying to establish or optimize their lifetime value, the lifetime value, computation? What should you look at from your metrics? And because given data is the holy grail of everything, what should you look at in terms of calculate what type of time cohorts should you look at in terms of calculating the lifetime value?
That's an excellent question, and I would we have something within Glew and within our team. We call it like the triangle. Okay, it's like the holy grail of finding, and you mentioned parts of it just now. So think about the operative elements being, one is time. So where is the time? Yeah. And what is the customer base, and what my customer cohort, and what are the products that amount to the revenue that I'm tracking associated with that customer cohort over that period of time. So think of those three elements in one look. So if I asked you for the advertising that for whatever level of advertising spend across whatever number of channels, because think of it as multiple channels for my advertising over a certain period of time, right? And I'm able to make a certain level of, with this customer base, of selling that produced this much revenue. Mm-hmm. If you think about that, looking at it as a cohort, or looking at it as that triangle of information, we have the ability to time slice that over the course of your business. And in our business, we look at lifetime value for the customers. We have lifetime value associated with products, lifetime value associated with orders. The lifetime, our LTV metric is applied throughout the entire product. So it's the goal is to continuously look at, when you're looking at lifetime value, you're looking at, and particularly in that triangle, what is the most effective combination that I'm able to produce the greatest lifetime value. And wouldn't you, if you knew that you could sell to 500 new customers this month, and that you were driving positive results in terms of the average order value, okay, the return on your ad spend, and all the other elements that go into what the value is, your lifetime value associated with those elements, wouldn't you want to repeat that over and over and over? And that is why for us, again, and I'm probably the least person to describe it in terms of the calculation itself, because our data team is never done. Our mantra is this: we want lifetime value permeated throughout the entire product for those elements. We would be pushing hard to say, place a lot of value on LTV. That is we want our spend to drive LTV. We want what customers, we want to know what content is driving.
Exactly.
We want to know everything's got to lead to a higher LTV for us.
Exactly. As in the LTV determines how much you're going to spend up front, from a CAC perspective, from a customer acquisition cost perspective, and that gives you that, it gives you the confidence, to moving forward with the way you spend on advertising. So my question, I guess, would be, does Glew automatically read the data and figure out the metrics in those in the triangle?
Yes.
Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Klaviyo is a growth marketing platform that powers over 25,000 online businesses. Klaviyo understands every single customer interaction and empowers brands to create more personalized marketing moments. Listen, analyze, and act on your customer data with Klaviyo. Visit klaviyo.com/2x. In terms of the time, the customer base cohort, and then the products, and then it determines then it calculates a CLV and presents it, or do you sit down with somebody from Glew and then you set those metrics, on there? You set the time, I guess. Okay, we're going to calculate CLV based on a 2-year period. We expect customers to churn after 2 years, or we expect this relationship to be about 5 years, and over that 5 years we expect them to purchase this number of times, and so we're able to figure it out. How does it just read it?
No, that's a phenomenal question. It goes right to the heart of it. So the date picker. So we went to the date picker and then we created a customer segment, and then all of our charts will use those 2 criteria as the basis. So I could go right now, look at my LTV. I could look at my return on ad spend. I could look at all these KPIs pivoting around those elements. So I could say, for this time frame, for this customer base, for these products, for these particular orders, give me those type of metrics. You're hitting right on it. And when I see what is, and we talked earlier about Black Friday to Cyber Monday. We talk about, there's some time periods are more sensitive, more important than others. It even becomes that much more magnified, is the ability to, and that's where I feel like where we have to do better as a company always is to assist and work with our subscribers to help them learn those first initial methods of determining where that value is, because they're busy doing other things and they don't necessarily live every day in the tool like we do.
Yeah.
But that's really where the value is, and it does produce those answers for you.
Yeah, makes sense. Then in the public, one thing I've noticed in public, in the whole D2C marketing space, is we talk a lot about acquisition. We talk about retention. Acquisition would be paid, influencer, all that stuff. We talk about retention, which is predominantly email and any other way you can communicate with your customers on a long-term basis. But we never talk about what I think is the holy grail of every e-commerce business, which is the products they sell. Now, what I found very interesting with Glew, as with many other business intelligence platforms, is the fact that you have, a tab dedicated to products. Okay. And in your products, you have your high gross margin, you have your most profitable, you have your discounted products. You actually categorize products by segments.
Yes.
So how important is it to feed a platform like Glew your cost of goods, so you could essentially use it to, in some way, just understand, to empower you to know how to spend front end, in terms of acquiring customers. And, so does it offer that in terms of how deep would it go in terms of putting your cost of goods, so if I see a price there, how much have we put in getting it into the warehouse from manufacturing through to transportation to warehouse, even to warehouse storage space?
Yeah, fabulous question. That hits home with me just because of my past life in the ERP world, where that was obviously always a critical component of everything from financials to operations. And the answer is yes, it's an integral part of what Glew provides. We bring in COGS data 3 different ways. We'll import that data through the standard API if it's available. We'll also provide a worksheet to allow it to be entered into manually, or we can do a manual import, meaning you can literally enter it into Glew real time and override it if you want to override the values for some reason, or we can just do kind of a bulk import of that. But there's one or two metrics within Glew, which I don't know how people would live without. So I assume that to your point about investing on the front end, it's associated with, it's got net profit by channel. So if you think about and looking at your profitability and also of course your orders, looking at the profitability without having your COGS, it almost seems impossible to do that. I don't know how people, I think, when our subscribers become rhythmic of knowing that they have reliable COGS data in Glew, it changes the game in terms of how they use it, and also who uses it, because you get a lot of the marketing people, not the marketing people, but the financial people, the decision makers, people making decisions about ad spend. It's central. COGS is a big factor for us in terms of differentiating ourselves from other platforms.
Yeah, it's so important, especially once you understand what your margins are, your gross margins are, and it just gives you that idea of how much you're going to spend, how much you have to, how much left you have to spend, and I think it's a very powerful metric, in terms of like products. Okay, what about like cost of shipping? It's a very it's not really talked again, in the D2C space, but it can make or break profitability if, especially when you're discounting shipping. So how can you use a business intelligence tool like Glew to dig out quite rapidly,
Yeah,
if shipping costs are killing your business essentially?
yeah. I can't tell you how spot on your comment is. The desire, the requirement starts with having all the shipping costs identified and included in what is one of our integrations. So in the warehouse, available for reporting. That's first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, the ability in a standard way, just as you said, by the way, in combination with promotions and discounts, and by order, by part of the world, by all the different ways you want to look at it. It is, as I said earlier, the best use case I've ever seen is a company that has all the resources in the world. It's a monstrous company, European company, $30 billion. They've been around a long time. Some brands we would all recognize, and you'd think that among the things that they are most concerned with is their ability to have a handle on shipping costs and what's that do. I guess manage shipping costs through the whole life cycle of that revenue stream. So in other words, they don't want to find out after the fact that they're getting killed.
Mm-hmm.
They want to have the information as real time as possible about what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So having this, in their case, they have their marketing managers all have, because they manage centrally for different parts around the world. They all are required to use Glew to do their daily reporting, and it includes very close monitoring of what's happening with their respective management of their shipping costs as it relates to the orders for that time period.
Okay.
It's key. It's a key
critical.
component.
It's critical. Really, really critical. So in regards to your multi-channel integration, what major platforms do you offer integration with? I would assume the Amazons, the eBays, the Walmarts.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense.
And really that's another driving force on the criticality of having both the comprehensive data set, but also the integrity, because everything's becoming more complex. If you think from a buyer side, they can do all the research they want. They can find where they think the best place to go is to make that purchase. In the aggregate, that will represent whatever the behavior is for that period, for that buying period, for that particular product. And the ability for the online seller to figure out what's happening with among their channels, all these different channels, what's with their customers. It's just becoming more complex, and the ability to have the data at your fingertips to see what's happening for your customer base across multiple channels is another key part of what, because in our case, we have some of our subscribers could have a cart system, an ERP system. They could have Shopify, they could have NetSuite, and a POS system. That's a separate system from those three, as well as all the multitude of the advertising and all the other things that are more common to those platforms.
Right.
And they're tracking. They have to be tracking what's happening across all three of those channels.
What about attribution? So how do you handle attribution? Is a very contentious issue, given how we access data, how we access, platforms, how we access, brands. Everything is quite on demand from a customer standpoint. Nothing is being served. You don't have to sit down in front of a television to be served ads, and you'd be able to probably calculate the effectiveness of an advert. And given the fact that we move from device to device, what's Glew's approach to attribution, and what how do you handle attribution?
Well, we had in the first release, and then for first couple of years, we had built in an attribution model. Our data. This is the same eCommerce, the data team that I spoke of, that we thought was most, I would say, commonly accepted. And then, the attribution models come out from many different influential sources, including the carts themselves. Okay. And then what we found is we weren't ready to give up like what we believed was the powerful, method of attribution that we thought would be more useful. This is like primarily from, I live at a little higher level. So for me, it's first order and last order is kind of like, that was pretty much like my extent of the details of it. But I'm in meetings approving significant, investment in development time to accommodate and maintain both what we believe is the most effective attribution model, but also support our customers, for example, are wanting an attribution model that they think tracks more with their cart system, for example. And so we have the ability to toggle within Glew.io, and you can look at multiple attribution models across the same set of metrics. So our view is instead of getting into a squabble that hardwires one way or the other, our goal is to provide the flexibility and the insights, what I guess now amounts to the two most prevalent ways of looking at attribution. And they're both inside Glew.io right now.
Okay, makes sense. What about BI, your BI tunnel? So how does all of this, all of what we talked about, from CAC to lifetime value to product cost, COGS, and shipping orders, how does this all fit into the BI tunnel, your business intelligence tunnel?
Okay, yeah, fabulous question, because if you think about
Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. Did you know that cloud-hosted e-commerce platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce do not provide automatic backups? Rewind steps in to protect Shopify and BigCommerce stores with automatic backups. Rewind is trusted by over 25,000 stores. Install Rewind and get to test it for free over 7 days. And to extend the 7-day trial to 30 days, head over to rewind.io, their website, and mention 2x eCommerce.
60 to 70% of all of the insights, metrics, KPIs, all the different types of information that's derived from that data warehouse, all that data that would be meaningful. 70% of it is what we all want to see. It's what we all share. It's what's common to all of us. But there's always going to be a 25 to 30% that is specific to a specific company, a specific management team, a specific industry, a specific brand, things that they're looking for that isn't necessarily going to be part of our standard offering, but we have all the data. And so what we allow in the Glew data in the subscription is there are a number of BI tools, all the BI tools. It could be Tableau, it could be Looker, it could be Periscope, it could be Mode, it could be Domo, and primarily any SQL-based BI tool. It could be Google Data Studio. Okay, yep. There may be a BI tool that is present within the organization. We bundle a BI tool in our subscription from Mode, and we like that tool. It's a powerful tool. We embody and include it in the subscription. And so for Glew Plus or Glew Plus Premium, and what that allows us to do is hit that data warehouse and create custom visualizations that are very powerful against that same data set, and then locate them on the left nav of Glew.io in Tunnel, so that the user experience is the same common user experience of getting both the standard set, but also those custom visualizations. So I'll give you one of my best ever was a cohort analysis, a pretty sophisticated cohort analysis and heat map and some specific things that a more seasoned, one of our more seasoned customers was looking for. She was used to a certain set of reports from a prior company. She loved Glew. She still uses it to this day, but there's 3 or 4 reports that were really critical to her. And she was thrilled that we had the data, but she wanted to see that. And so we built those custom reports for her, and it automatically imports it into Tunnel. So if I go to the left nav and click on Tunnel, what pops up are where my custom reports are. And I can pop those open, and it has the same look and feel as the rest of Glew. And now I have a composite of everything I need. Again, the key thing there, Kunle, the most important thing to me there is it's kind of like maybe I'm more of a behind the curtains guy. It's not that the report's there. That's table stakes to me. What's important is that hourly refresh on the data that comes into the warehouse, ETL, that is provisioning for that report. That is where the real productivity gain and the competitive edge is. Because think about it, if I'm going to have to find a way to pay somebody to constantly be developing reports against a current data set, I'm not in business. I need to be real time.
Exactly.
I need to be real. I need to know I'm going to my data in real time automatically.
Yeah.
And that's where that power of those integrations comes in.
It makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So it's a singular data source. Yeah, it's a singular dashboard essentially in an interface that you're very familiar with. Just piping in, all the BI, tools into Glew, and then process visualizing it essentially and making decisions in the instance, and then it refreshes.
Can you imagine if you were the chief marketing officer or the chief financial officer or the CEO or even an owner of a DTC brand or a large CPG company, or even a merchant that's got a great store? Okay. Could you imagine if you said, I'm not sure at any time. So picture a case where I've got multiple channels. I've even got multiple stores for different parts of the world. And I've got multiple channels in each of those areas. And now I'm being asked to provide reporting up to the C-suite and to the people that are the stakeholders. And I want to know I have all the accurate data for all those things you just said.
Now,
COGS,
real time, exactly.
everything. And I say, what confidence can I have? What confidence can I have that that BI analyst in Denmark or New Orleans or in Bonn, Germany, or wherever they are, how do I know that those people are going to have the same execution upon the same data set for the same calculation? So I have standardization across my enterprise when I tell people what my return on ad spend is, or I tell people what my AOV or CAC or all these, what are my most profitable channels?
Mm.
That confidence level has got to be built up through having a data platform like Glew that says I've brought all these sources into a single place and I can render it out to everybody in a standard way, not a unique way, standard across the whole organization.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes a ton of sense now. Makes a ton of sense. Okay. I think this has been really, really thorough. The only final question I had was, no, I guess I know. I guess it's thorough. Um, what are your thoughts? Yeah, final question I had was, what are your thoughts on, because you connect to 95 plus data sources and growing, plus the BI tunnel thing, which is really infinite, based on wherever data is coming in. What are your thoughts on analytics, Google Analytics, any analytics platform, and a platform traffic data? So where's Holy Grail? Would you um, do you trust, which do you trust better, Shopify's data or Google Analytics data?
That's a phenomenal question. Um, I probably shouldn't answer that question because my answer would be anecdotal.
Okay.
I'm off of some meeting. I was just recently in a session where I was, put off by the fact that we're still having a conversation with one of our largest customers right now, even though we have everything sorted out. But I think I would just say that what we try to do at Glew is make sure that we are constantly seeking the single and providing the single source of the truth. Okay.
Okay.
And I don't really have an answer for where's the Holy Grail, because for us, those are both critical integrations for us to a majority of our customers.
So you kind of figure it out. You find a fine line between, because they're never ever the same. They're never the
No,
same.
but I love your question so much because the gal that leads our data team, I
Yeah.
talk to her probably 10 times a year,
Yeah.
and we have this discussion 10 times a year. And it's always about for
Yeah.
a single customer.
Yeah.
And but we continuously. So I'll give you an example. In the environments section of Glew, in other words, where you can set your parameters,
Yes.
we are trying to build in the flexibility to accommodate the people that view the world from a different model.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, customer to customer, they may answer that question differently.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to build in when you put up your setup, when you're making your setup selections. Like, I'll give you an example. When you calculate revenue, do you want to include returns and discounts? For example, I'm just making something up. Okay.
Yeah.
I want you to include the calculation, every calculation for revenue to include discounts and returns. Another customer might say, I don't want to have return. I don't want that reflected in my revenue number. I want to see top line revenue, and you can calculate my returns elsewhere. So what we do, instead of fighting that battle, is we're trying to give you the flexibility at setup to toggle left or right and make those selections. So Glew is going to be configured for you the way you want it.
Okay. Makes sense. Cool. Your integration list is quite impressive, from what I could see here. Right. So for people who want to, follow what, Glew is doing, where is the best, where are you most active on? Are you more active on social or on your blog? And how can people really, get the best from, e-commerce BI, business intelligence?
Yeah, I think probably I'd ask them to hit our website.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah.
I would, and this is not, I don't mean this as a sales pitch. I just mean it as a true thing. In fact, I always feel totally inadequate in these interviews because I always feel I fail at being able to really pass along what this platform is capable of doing for companies. But I would say go to Glew.io and take a trial. It's a 10-day trial. It's free, and try it, and go ahead and hit our client success team up with all the questions that you want. And because they're actually customers we've had for now all 4 years, and in our business, renewal, and it's so important, just like any other company. And so I put a tremendous emphasis on retention and renewals, which thankfully is going well for us. But I would say, like, go ahead and try it. But I was gonna say, we have customers that literally, I know this sounds crazy, but there's one table that there's a decision maker says, that one table is why I want that subscription. That literally there can be certain, information, the reporting that's so critical. I mean, we have things like the daily snapshot, and I mean, we even talk about segments. There's a very powerful segmenting capability for customers, products, orders, inventory. Just very powerful to create those segments and affect them and push them to mail systems, etc. But anyway, but just try it out and see. And even if they don't subscribe, that's fine. It's a lot of times you can get ideas even about, I didn't know that's a great idea. I should be looking at my ROAS this way. I didn't even know I should include these 3 columns in my ROAS calculation. Simple things that might help them.
I'll definitely link to the site, to your site from the show notes. I think for me, as in my key takeaway, having looked at your integrations, is that what you see in Glew is only as powerful as the data sources you provide, the platform. And if you're running a Shopify site, BigCommerce or Magento, most of your go-to growth and retention platforms or tools have direct integration with from the Optimizely's to the Klaviyo's to so you have all that on here, and you can quite easily just measure growth, just get your data in to the platform. Well, Michael, it's been a pleasure having you, onto the show. Thank you so much for sharing, tips on, analytics and business intelligence for e-commerce.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Enjoyed it.
Cheers.